I think we're ready. So you can do the kick it honors if you want to, man.
I mean, I can.
So you just got to say it.
All you got to do is say it.
Kick it.
Oh, man. Welcome to Hardheaded. I am your host, Matt Amos. Along with me, as always, is Chet Sears. And today, special guest host, Broughton Beef. Whatever we want to call him. The guy that gives me a hard time about my choice in boils. But
he's not the only one. There are multiple people.
Boils. You don't choose to boil. That's why I give you a hard time.
look, we might cover that in a little bit, but Chet, go ahead.
Yeah, first we just want to let you know we're missing Troy, 3-shot Trussell today. He is down with the virus right now, so we hope to have him back next week. In the meantime, we invited our previous guest, Chris Broughton from Shreveport or Bossier City, Louisiana. I want to be more accurate. You were a guest back in. Oh, geez, Louise. That was a long time ago, man.
The podcast was released March 12th.
March 12th, and this is episode number 41. So, welcome back. We're glad to have you. Hopefully, you'll fit in and help us move the show along.
I'm glad to be here, and I hope to fit in a lot of places, but I usually don't.
We'll see how this goes.
Physically and socially. Oh, that's too funny. So, I don't know. I guess we're just kind of go what's on our mind, what's on my mind. I think one of the bigger two things, we're coming off of the 20th anniversary, September 11th. That's been kind of on my mind a little bit. But the bombs that were dropped previous to the weekend were all these this OSHA rule change that now mandates that companies with over 100 employees have to have their employees either vaccinated and or tested weekly for COVID. And that one's just kind of got me all worked up.
Well, does your company have 100 employees?
We do not.
Sit down.
I'm not allowed to have an opinion just because I don't work for a company that has over 100 employees. Is that how it goes?
No, you can have an opinion. I just wanted to tell you to sit down, so I did. Because before I asked that question, I knew your company did not, so I knew I was setting you up.
I feel like I've been set up with our current administration.
Well, the thing, I disagree maybe. I don't know if I do. I don't know if I don't. But I do know one thing. People are always saying there ought to be a law against this. There ought to be a law about that. But then when there's a law that they don't like, they don't think there should be a law. So if you want a government that can make a lot of laws, sometimes they're going to be ones you don't like. If you are willing to live in a less restrictive society, there's not going to be as many laws, and people got to sleep in the bed they make. And I don't have any other opinion.
I get what you're saying, but this isn't a law.
Yeah, but a regulation is an administrative regulation has the force of law because Congress gives administrative agencies the authority to make rules that have the force of law.
So how would that apply if the CDC says that firearms are a health hazard and therefore are banned?
Well, we have a constitutional amendment about that.
So we would have to amend the Constitution to say that no government agency can require medical procedures for every citizen?
You could. I mean, that could be done. I don't know if it has to get that far, but everybody permits all these vaccine requirements for various pox and whatever for school, but now they don't want it for this.
Well, they all go back, and this is where it gets muddy. And you I don't know if you've done any studying on this, but for those that are listening, Broughton's an attorney that doesn't practice constitutional law, but probably knows more about it than me or Matt put together. But everybody's citing this Jacobson versus Massachusetts decision from like 1905 that the Supreme Court upheld that the state of Massachusetts, actually it was a municipality, Boston, and therefore the state could require citizens to be vaccinated. I can't remember exactly what for. 1905, what pandemic was going on back then? Was it polio? Anyway,
I don't know if it was polio.
It was a vaccine, and if you didn't get vaccinated, you got fined $5, which in equivalent dollars today is $150.
Okay.
So, but that was actually the elected officials. And what's the word? It wouldn't be a mandate. It would be a statute. They voted on a statute, and that statute was passed through their lawmaking body, the local lawmaking body, and then said that, yeah, you could fine anybody for not doing that at the local level. So what we have today is not a local level, and it's not a statute. It's literally a rule change for an organization that manages or not doesn't manage. They just observe and have requirements for workplace safety. So that's jacked up, in my opinion.
I'm always for less rules. I'm mainly getting your goat, but I don't know that. I mean, they could litigate this and they go up to the Supreme Court, and it would probably fail because the court's got more conservatives on it now than liberals. So,
which is unfortunate because most of the court system today is about the result of their decision as opposed to the sticking to the letter of the law. It's like, what will this mean if we were to decide this one way, not what does the Constitution say? Which stinks too. I mean, there's a whole lot of bad things that have come out of the whole Jacobson verdict back in 1905. They were sterilizing people that were admitted into mental institutions so they couldn't have kids based on this law, saying that the state can do anything that they want to do as long as it was promoting quote unquote health, what they determined to be health.
Yeah, I remember in law school there was a case, Buck versus Bell, and I don't remember much about it, but I remember a line from the opinion was 3 generations of imbeciles is enough, and they were upholding somebody sterilizing a mentally challenged person.
Which,
of course, nowadays that's been overruled, but that they were just going through constitutional history
and Buck versus Bell basically was leaning on Jacobson versus Massachusetts for their reasoning. So anyway, I think it's messed up. I think what's worse in all of this is we're losing reality. What we know now today is that people that have the vaccine get the virus, they spread the virus. There's a opinion that they don't get deathly ill, but at the same time, what we're seeing in Israel isn't necessarily that case. That's the most vaccinated per capita country, as I understand it, and they're having huge issues right now, banking on 100% of the vaccine.
Well, and that's what I saw was the statistic that what is herd immunity, 60% or so. And if you've got 60% of the population that has either had the virus or has gotten the vaccine, then you have technically reached herd immunity. But in this instance, that has not been the case.
They changed that. So that's what they were saying when before there was a vaccine. And they said, well, if we get the vaccine and then we just get 60%, then we'd be at herd immunity. Then we got the vaccine. We already have 60%. I think the total is 71% right now of
that's the number
ages.
I saw.
But if you hear the people like at the CDC, they're saying, well, it's probably like upwards of 90% to get to herd immunity now. So it's the shifting. It's the Lucy and Charlie Brown football. You get to what they say that you need to do, and you do it, and they tell you that's not it.
Well, I think that's what causes the mistrust is the shifting of the goalposts constantly.
Why is that?
What do you mean?
Why they move the goalposts? Or
Yeah.
Well, they always tell you the goalpost is closer than it will be to get you to try, and then they keep on moving it because they know once you're out there, it's just like 2 weeks to flatten the curve. The government's mostly interested in its own power than helping you. And,
say that one more time.
The government is more often interested in increasing its own power and than helping you or preserving your liberties. Government is the opposite of liberty.
You're being broad. Surely you're only talking about the Democrats.
Negatory.
I think that's a very powerful. For me, once I realized that the biggest interest that any political party has is their primary interest is to have more power, not whatever else you think it is. It's secondary to that. That they want more power, and where do they get power? Is the only place they could get it is from the people.
Yeah, from the people. The governments need more power and more money, and they get that from you. And everything they do is in the long run about taking it from people.
Which I think is one reason that natural immunity hasn't been mentioned in any of the discussions from anybody talking about the virus. Like there's no, and scientifically what's coming back through all the studies is that the best protection that you can have is through natural immunity, not through the vaccines. And
well, that's been proven with what are we on now? The third shot
for Pfizer. I don't know if I think J&J still 1, and I think Moderna is still 2, and now they're saying Pfizer's 3. But Pfizer's been out the longest, hadn't it? So they know more about Pfizer, so maybe the other ones are going to change too?
I don't know.
Johnson's the one I got, but it's mostly nobody gets it anymore, and there's no booster, It's kind of gone by the wayside, but I think when it's time to get some more, I'll get Moderna. I mean, I'm not against the vaccine. I'm against forcing anybody to take it, but I think it's been proven safe and effective, so I got it.
I think
Johnson & Johnson has been proven safe and effective, but the other ones, and matter of fact, I was talking to one of my buddies who's getting ready for med school. And he goes, the research on the mRNA is newer than his truck. So, imagine that the Johnson & Johnson would go by the wayside, the one that has almost 200 years of vaccine research behind it.
Yeah, but the unfortunate thing is the Johnson & Johnson carries the most risk because it's got the one of the side effects, albeit somewhat small, is Guillain-Barré. GBS. So,
well, I mean,
it's safe for those that don't get that.
Well, but we don't know the effects of the mRNA either yet.
Yeah.
Because it hasn't been out long enough. So those may have more severe.
And I think that's the other thing that it gets into. So OSHA changes, and here we go, Mr. Attorney. OSHA changes this rule, and let's just say I work at company, Broughton Incorporated, and you have 101 employees, and you say, okay, per OSHA, I'm going to force you guys to get vaccinated because I can't afford to test 100 employees at $50 a pop every week. I'm just going to go out of business. That eats all my profit margin. So we go out and get the vaccine. I go out and I get the Johnson & Johnson vaccine. I get Guillain-Barré. It paralyzes me, and I can't go back to work. What happens? Like, what's my out? Is it the federal government that's going to eat the liability for that? Is it the company for requiring me for that, or am I just on my own?
Well, I bet if the company's requiring you to get vaccine, they're probably doing it at work in the break room. And so there, you were sort of injured on the job and maybe you have some kind of workers' comp thing. I don't know.
So that's a liability that is not being considered in this. I think another liability that's there. So the least, when you look at people groups, the data is saying that the minority people groups are the least responsive to going out and getting a vaccine. And they're also going to have issues with employment if they're going to stick to their guns and not getting a vaccine, and then they're going to get canned. I mean, this isn't beneficial for that. Nobody's looking at it from that window, publicly anyway, which I think stinks. And your doctor, this is one of the only situations that I'm aware of where the government is trying to rule your life medically and not encourage you to have conversations with your doctor about this. Like, that's not one of the big proponents is like, hey, you should go talk to your doctor. But I know a lot of doctors, and I know a lot of doctors that are pro-vaccine. I don't know if I know a doctor that isn't pro-vaccine. So why aren't we funneling people to have conversations with their doctors about this as opposed to just trying to force everybody to do it? Like, what in the world? Like, and I think it's going back to the power. The government's just wanting to tell everybody what to do.
Well, they're wanting to tell everybody what to do, and it could be a gateway for universal health care.
The government is always testing. It's like a puppy or a kid. It's always testing its limits. It's like whenever they had that Boston Marathon pressure cooker bomber. They shut down that whole city and searched houses and, martial law and all that. And, everybody's like, well, how can they do that? Well, they did it to a whole city just to see what people do, and nobody did anything about it. So now they know that they can, if they need to do that again, they can do it. Because they said, oh, we're looking for the bombers, so everybody suspend all Fourth Amendment rights in the Boston area, and they all did it willingly.
Right.
And the government, whenever there's, the government will just do little test things all the time to see what you'll let them do. And eventually, some worldwide governing authority is going to want you to take a certain mark, and there you are.
Well, I mean, ultimately that's where we're going, I believe. And this is just a gateway for that. But power given is power lost.
So are you saying that you're that the vaccine is a gateway drug? Is that what you're getting at? He's taking a draw on his sweet tea.
It's actually water. I ran out of sweet tea. So what was your question?
You're saying the vaccine's a gateway drug. You mentioned gateway.
Yeah, I just, it goes back to that. Power given is power lost. I mean, you give that power to the government to make those decisions, you effectively just lost that power because now they're going to do it all. Just like he was saying with the whole Boston incident. Because in an abundance, everybody's, they're, oh man, we got a bomber running around. I guess it's okay to give this up.
For now.
But
it's for a good cause.
Right. And that's the whole thing. It's for a good cause, but it never comes back. And my issue isn't with the vaccine. It's them telling me that that's what I have to do. And I think even if I chose to get the vaccine, that it should still be everybody else's right to be able to not get it.
Yeah.
Was that a sneeze?
Bless you.
It was very clear.
Oh.
Don't bless you.
Is that against the rules?
Chet takes his blessing back.
Yeah. Anyway, so pro-vaccine, anti-tyranny. I guess we could all agree on that. Hey, did you know that in this proposed budget that Biden put up, the increase, the spending bill, they're doubling, in effect, the IRS, size of the IRS. They're adding 87,000 agents as their request. And every year in perpetuity, an additional 15% growth in employees in the IRS.
Steve Forbes is going to put all that on an index card.
Oh, then we don't have to worry about it then. He'll take care of it. That's crazy.
Well, and I saw where they're trying to track your, they're trying to get banks to report any deposit
Or withdrawal of $600. Is that?
I think it's $600. Yep.
I mean, that's crazy.
So
They're trying to go after people's Bitcoin too.
Why don't we just go to what was that? There was a book I read a decade or two ago, the fair tax. Yeah. 100% sales, not 100% being the percentage, but you only tax people for sales on new goods, not used goods, new goods. There would be no need for the IRS, and all the wealthy people that buy all these things would be paying a lot more taxes. But it'd be less government control, less need for IRS agents.
Well, and that's what it all comes back to. I don't even want to get started on the taxes because now we go from vaccines to taxes. And
are we just anti-government right now? We need to change our tune.
Well,
they're going to have to do something because as more and more people adopt a decentralized, non-government fiat monetary system like Bitcoin or Ethereum, then they're going to have to do something to get some money because nobody's going to be using their stupid government money anymore.
Yeah.
Well, but they're still going to be getting their money, maybe not from sales tax and stuff like that on goods purchased, maybe.
It's just not going to have value, though. That's the thing. Yeah, one of my econ classes back in college, he held up $1 and said, "Hey, what makes this worth something?" And somebody was like, "Well, gold." And he's like, "No, gold. The U.S. dollar is not gold backed anymore. It's the faith." Like he literally, it's like it's a religion. It's faith that this is actually worth what they tell you it's worth. There's nothing behind it.
I have faith that my $1 bill is worth $1 million.
You don't have enough faith.
And back then, you could buy 1/6 of a tasty barbecue meal.
Yeah, that Barbecue City from Big Marcus, $6.20.
That's it.
Yeah, well, because every time tax season comes around, that's one of my biggest annoyances is just my house. So my house is paid off, but if I don't pay the stupid taxes on it every single year, they can come take my home that I rightfully own.
Come and take it.
Well, I've about gone there a few times because then they want to do all this stuff, even with the wind turbines and stuff like that. And it's like, look, I didn't vote for that, but yet here I am paying these taxes for you to push this on me. So I'm paying your salary to try to force this on me.
You're paying them to give money in a tax break to a wind turbine company that's going to then put one next door to your house that is going to.
Well, not only am I paying them, now I'm paying them for the defense I'm basically paying the lawyers on the defense. You guys got a whole racket going on, making money on all sides.
That's it. And there's always enough money for the lawyers.
And trust me, our lawyer has made a buttload.
All lawyers are just extremely wealthy, and they make more money. It's disgusting how much money they make.
Yeah.
Right. I'm just kidding. I'm just getting you on tilt right now.
I guess I really need to know one. So I'd be willing to concede my Boyle debacle there for, I don't know, what's a good trade there?
You're in the wrong. You have no high ground.
No, I am right, but I'm willing to reverse my correct choice of vernacular in describing a situation with cooking. And actually, I did talk to a chef who agreed with me. So there's that.
Chef doesn't make them an authority in.
Yes, it does.
In definitions.
Yes, the meaning of words, it doesn't matter. You got to know the meaning of a word. To have it amongst the pool of words that one could rank in maybe their top 3.
I slipped that in there. I think that's the first time I've used it outside of the top 3.
But I mean, the definition according to Google, which is everything now, it says cook or be cooked by immersing in boiling water or stock. Immersing.
And half of it is immersed, and then the other half of it is immersed. I don't know. I don't know how more to explain it besides to have people over and show them. But
I'll eat it.
Oh, it's
I'm
good.
just not going to call it what you call it.
It's good.
Hey, so you down there in your HQ, you didn't get touched by this latest hurricane, did you? Ida?
No, but we're fixing to get some rain from Nicholas.
What? Yeah, there's a tropical storm, right? It's coming up the Gulf Coast on the South Texas.
Come through southeast Texas and give us some rain on the northern edge of it. We had a nice low humidity week, and that all came to an end last night. A big crash of moist air showed up.
What do you do to prepare for that kind of stuff? And I know you're not on the coast. You're a few hours north, so you're looking at like rain and some kind of wind.
Well, in this, probably not, but if I was preparing for a hurricane, I would just make sure that I had food, water, fuel. And by water, I mean other liquids too. I don't have a generator because I have not been in a situation where I have lost power for such an extended period of time that I felt I would need one. And then, maybe I should get one, but I have, if I'm going to be without power for that long,
Well, didn't you, so you got hit by that ice storm or that snow that hit all of Texas and shut the power out. Louisiana, yeah. You got hammered with that. You actually had some little 4-wheel drive action on the road, didn't you?
Yeah. Now, in the ice storm, I was one of the elite prepared in the area. Everybody was scrambling around trying to find water, getting water delivered by the state police, and I'm stranded in their homes. I had food and water. I didn't even notice.
You were basking in your preparedness?
I was basking in my preparedness and gloating about it. And
see, that's where we're two different kind of people. I have the whole home generator, and when everybody's power goes out around me and my house is still lit up like a Christmas tree and everybody's looking at my house kind of on the hill with the power, I actually kind of feel kind of bad. I go outside and I see everybody without power, and there's my generator just, and there's me with my AC on and the fans and my TV and hot water. And
what we did when we lost power, we didn't have generators. But what we would do is you just, because your food ends up, that first couple days, you just don't open your freezer. Like that's the cardinal sin, is opening, because you want to get everything in there to stay frozen, and it keeps everything insulated as much as possible. But so
how does it keep food cold?
It's already frozen. It's like keeping it in a cooler. You have an insulated box.
But why don't you open it?
Because then you're letting all that cold air out and you're letting all that hot air in. So then it's going to work harder.
It's letting the hot air in, but it's thermodynamics. No big deal.
What comes out if you're letting hot air in?
Nothing.
Nothing comes out?
Mm-mm.
No, you don't feel that coolness coming out of there? You've never...
It's the warm air going in.
Maybe because I feel it at my feet, because the cold air drops and you don't feel it.
I don't feel it down there at all.
But anyway, after day 2, it's time to open that thing up and start inviting your neighbors over. And it's feeding big groups of people with, whatever catfish and deer meat and all the stuff you have in the freezer. So then that was a big social time. If you had power out for an extended amount of time, then next thing you know, you're house hopping, going and hanging out with people as they cook all the food in their freezer.
Now, if I lived in a more vulnerable area that was more prone to power failure, I would get a generator. Like there were several people that were out of power for days. We were out of power for like 3 hours when they were doing their little rolling blackout.
Yeah.
But I rarely am without power for more than a little bit, because in the last several residences I've lived in places that don't lose power. But, I got a friend who lives in Baltimore area, where you used to live, Chet.
Yep.
And they tend to lose power a lot.
Yeah. The power lines are all above ground. They run behind the houses, and they have, I had an oak tree in my yard that was, I don't know, 60 foot tall.
Yeah. And, they lose power a lot. And then they, so in that situation, I would have a generator because I don't want to be without power for many days. But right, and maybe I will get a generator. But I just don't have one yet, and haven't. You know me, I really have to be motivated to do something.
Yeah.
Well, maybe the motivation comes from the government just randomly turns your power off until you get the vaccine.
Hey, it's coming.
They're doing rolling blackouts. Hey, nope.
Yeah.
We're going to beat you into submission.
Wait, does your household have less than 100 people in it? Then drop it.
But see, we've already given that freedom up. So it starts at 100 and next it's going to be 50, and then it's going to be 25, and then it's going to be 10, and then it's going to be, you're a small business owner. You can't do business until you get the vaccine.
Well, wow, that was deep conversations here on not having, I last week I watched a documentary on Ruby Ridge, and I think this is bad timing because you go from that and then boom, all these mandates pop out. I was already in a bad mood.
Ruby Ridge fires me up. That's my number one fire up.
Yeah. So they had it was a PBS documentary, and it was, I don't know, a fair assessment, highly critical of the government.
Well, and I think, because I think that one's on Amazon and you can watch it. I think I've seen that one, the one you're talking about. Yep.
Anyway, hey, let's move on to our commercial break. I remembered it.
Yep.
And then we'll be back with our top 3.
At Admiral's Pennant, our mission is to offer the latest and refined, high-quality masculine products and services to the modern gentleman, as well as provide him with the tools and products necessary to look, act, and feel confident in his appearance and social interactions. Check it out at admiralspennant.com. Without it, you might as well shave. And we're back.
You just stole that.
I did. Well, technically, I'm hosting, and you took us to break.
Yeah, but I always give the "and we're back" thing.
All right. Well, do it.
We're going with top 3 greatest sports moments. So this is somewhat listener provided top 3 from our good friend Gage, but he requested top 3 greatest sporting events we've ever attended. And there's just not that many great sporting events that I've attended. I'm assuming for you, Matt, same thing. And it would have been the same for Troy. Broughton, I'm guessing, he was actually, of all the things going on, Beef was a football coach of the of middle school football.
That I was.
Yeah. Yeah. What was your record? And you weren't a head coach, to be clear.
No, I was just some kind of
just a guy that showed up.
Yeah.
Just front. Yeah.
Yeah. Just to cause a ruckus.
In charge of waiting for practice to be over.
That's awesome. Anyway, who wants to lead this one off?
I'll go.
All right.
So I'm actually going to do mine, I guess, in chronological order.
Sure, it's your show.
So
man.
I'm going to start with the oldest first.
Okay. Number 3.
Number 3, the Sultan of SWAT.
Okay.
Do we know who I'm talking about?
Yes.
That's a baseball player.
George Herman Ruth.
That's right. I think him calling his shot and then hitting that homer in the World Series, because even today, how many years ago was that? Almost 100 years ago, that 1932. So we're just at almost 90 years.
Yeah.
But people are still, anytime they step up to the plate, they'll take that bat.
They still mimic it.
And they point. Whether it doesn't matter if you're 4 years old with a wiffle ball bat, you're pointing, you're calling your shot. and it's an iconic moment in sports history.
Yeah.
And, so, I mean, he played 22 seasons of baseball with 714 home runs, which was broken by Hank Aaron. And then I believe it's been broken since, but I don't recall by who. But
Bonds.
Barry Bonds.
Barry Bonds.
And I just heard Broughton say that. He's a baseball fan. I'm not.
So he still has, with his home run record, which has been beaten, and his RBIs, which he had 2,213 career RBIs, his on-base slugging percentage and his slugging percent, his slugging percent was .690, and his on-base plus slugging was 1 and 1.164, and those two records still stand to this day.
I don't know what slugging percentage means.
I had to look it up. It was it's basically not just hitting, but it's getting on base or multiple bases.
Okay. I'm a big fan of his physique in doing all of that.
Yes.
Like that. He was an athlete,
I mean,
he dominated dinner and baseball.
Well, and for back then, people were smaller than they are today, but he was like 6'2". He's a big dude for back then, and just obviously had some incredible hand-eye coordination to be able to do what he did. So that would be number 3. Number 2 goes back to 2010, and it's Landon Donovan in the World Cup, and he had a stoppage time goal against Algeria that sent the U.S. to the next stage for the first time since the inception of the World Cup back in 1930, I think. And it's actually one of the most watched videos on YouTube.
Of all time?
It is his in sports. And it's described as one of the greatest YouTube videos of all time, but it's got like 7 or...
I'm not a big soccer fan, but I could tell you, the World Cup gets me fired up. And that's
and in this video, if you look this up, I mean, it shows the reaction from around the world. I mean, because the U.S. team had never done that before, they'd never made it out of the first stage, and this was the first time that they'd done it.
Right.
And so it was a pretty big deal.
Well, I mean, just what little I've traveled overseas, foreign countries, it's just amazing. I can't remember which country I was in during World Cup time, but like everything's shut down. Like we're gathering around our TVs, and we got to watch what's going on. And just for the global support behind that whole thing and how impactful it is for everybody, that's a pretty cool deal. So not a bad.
I was into the World Cup until America didn't qualify, and I was like,
is that this go round?
Yeah, whenever the last one, they can't even go. They didn't qualify.
Yeah,
dude, we suck
for the one in
Qatar. Of all the soccer traveling clubs we got out there.
Well, you still got to think, but you still got to think that the funding for soccer here in the States, it's all still relatively new. Whereas these other countries, that's the only. No,
I don't want to hear about funding for it. You take a 13-year-old that's been in club soccer in the U.S. that's traveled to a hotel 49 weekends out of the year to play these club deals. They're in practice. They get private lessons, and you stick them in Haiti with a barefoot kid that's never been to school, and the U.S. kid's getting his clock cleaned in soccer. It's not about funding.
I think you just answered your own question. He didn't go to school.
No.
He had all these extra hours to practice.
No, they're not practicing. They're literally like milking goats and getting mangoes from the ground. And they don't even have balls just floating around to go play soccer with, but they're better at it than other people. And that's like the rest of the world. Like, what's up with the whole soccer thing in the U.S.? Because I'm looking at you because you're an authority in my mind because you played soccer.
Well, I think it is, and I think it's because of football. So we have football. So you've got a lot of athletes that have a lot of talent that go and play football.
So you're saying that all the soccer players out there that are really good are playing different sports?
Yeah, because they were never introduced to soccer to be able to, because even back when I was in school, it was like, oh, soccer, it's gay,
Yeah.
I played anyway because I don't care, because I love the game.
Did you know I was on a soccer team?
No, I did not.
Have I ever told you this? I haven't told you?
No.
I was soccer. I was and I'll bring the picture to show you to prove this to you, but I was on a soccer club when I was in kindergarten at England Air Force Base. I was going to England Air Force Base Elementary School, and we had a sponsor for our team, and the sponsor's name was on our jersey. It happened to be the local hot dog fast food restaurant, independent. I don't think it was a chain. Goes by the name Wiener King. I had Wiener King on my soccer jersey. It was pretty awesome.
I still got that on my.
Oh, yes. Coincidence.
Yeah. But no, I mean, but I think it's because it's just so diluted. Even now with all the high school sports that we've got, it's just the talent pool just gets less and less.
They don't play any other sports in any other countries.
I mean, not with the passion that they play soccer.
Okay.
Because that one really doesn't require any equipment other than a ball.
And yet we spend billions on it in the U.S. and we're not good on the world stage.
Right. You can't throw money at the talent, but when you throw money at all these other programs, football, track, baseball, bowling, sporting clays, whatever, just your talent pool gets depleted.
Yeah, with that being said, though, we dominated the clays in the Olympics.
Well, we dominated that, and I wish I could say that we dominated basketball, but we did end up winning. But basketball's always been one of those sports that we've dominated at because it was invented here and we've played longer than anybody else.
Yeah.
And so there's a lot of kids involved in basketball.
Okay. Well, I'll go watch a video. That gets me excited. I still get fired up about the World Cup.
And it is a good video. And I guess the best non-live sporting event that I've been to was in Peru during the World Cup, and going to a local pub and watching how they watch soccer. Completely different than anything here football-wise. I mean, it's crazy.
Yeah, what was I watching?
Chet's a big fan of Megan Rapinoe, so
that's what I hear. He loves that women's team.
Who are you talking about? I don't even know who that is.
Headed soccer player. You know who that is.
Yeah, I know.
He smiled.
I was watching an interview with Matt Damon. It was that Hot Ones, that Sean Evans that does really good interviews.
Yeah.
And he was kind of talking about how Damon's a big fan of, all things Boston, and how cool it is being in the getting to go to the Patriots games and being, kind of whatever. So he asked him, like, what's his favorite sporting event, like, of all the, and he's like, if you ever get the chance, the greatest thing that you could do is go watch a soccer match in Europe live. Like, so he didn't even, it wasn't even a thought to say, oh, well, watching a baseball game at Fenway is just, it's over the. And he's like, no, it's like you have to go to Europe and watch a soccer match because it's just the coolest. The way everybody knows the game, they start cheering when things are starting to happen that could develop into something good. And he was a big proponent of it. Not that he's an authority for me, but anyway.
Well, even here, soccer fans are pretty crazy. All right.
Number one,
we're going all the way back to 2019.
Back when life was good and there were no lockdowns,
and I'm going to the next Sultan, the Sultan of Swish. Do we know who I'm talking about?
In 2019?
In 2019.
Your Swish is basketball in 2019?
No.
Well, I don't know. I don't Swish your sweets.
Nope. His name's Damon Dennis, an American cornhole player.
This is clearly the greatest sports moment.
So
educate us all. Well, I probably have one that's just as vague.
You might. So anyway, for those who don't know, cornhole is now a professional sport. And I would like to bring more light to this sport, not only because I'm attempting to go pro myself. I just decided this last week. And I've been watching all these YouTube videos.
Wait, you are intending to attempt to go pro. You have not attempted to go pro.
No, I'm attempting to go pro
You're intending to attempt.
Listen, I'm a bagger, okay? So with every toss or pitch, as they call it, that I get on that board, that's one step closer to going pro. So anyway, this dude has a bag. So you have the 6-inch hole that you're trying to get this bag in.
Mm-hmm.
And his opponent has this bag on the board, which on the board's worth 1 and the hole's worth 3. And it's just behind the 6-inch circle. And he needs to knock that bag off and drain a 3 to win.
Because the other guy you get to 21 is the object.
Yeah,
so if he has a bag on the board, all he needs is 1 point or whatever.
Yeah. He would have got 2, and 2 would have won it. And so he takes this bag and throws it. It simultaneously knocks off the opponent's bag completely off the board.
From behind the hole.
Yeah, and it's behind the hole. So he hits it with like the top portion of his bag, knocks it off the hole, while the other half of the bag is in the hole and goes in. And they call it an airmail with a +1. And it's like apparently the most difficult shot in cornhole. And
like a 7-10 split, but he did it to win.
Yeah. And it was pretty impressive. Now, if you have never watched cornhole, get on YouTube and just watch some of these tournaments and see how jacked up these people get about a game that can be played by literally anybody. It doesn't matter what size you are, missing legs, doesn't matter. I'm going to be the first to enter with no legs because I haven't seen any guys with prosthetics on there. So that's going to be my claim to fame. I'm open to sponsorship.
Hopefully your claim to fame is that you can win.
Well, that remains to be seen. I mean, if I'm not that good, then I'm just going to get a teammate who can bring up the rear.
Beef, you got any opinions on cornhole?
I am horrible at it. I can't. It seems like I always go right to left or left to right. I can't judge the distance. It's just I'm horrible.
Well, it just takes practice, really. And the distance from front of board to front of board is 27 feet. And I've since learned because it all started on Labor Day weekend. I mean, that's when I made my decision to go pro. And
because he beat his daughter.
Yeah, because I was like the best in my family with my wife and 2 kids. And I was like, I think I can make a career out of this. And so one of our bags busted open. And it just threw this chalk everywhere. And so I went and I was looking for bags to order online. Well, I found this local store, and I think it's called the Cornhole Cave. And so I was like, oh,
there's no corn in the bags?
What's that?
I thought the bags had corn in them.
They can have pretty much whatever material you want inside of them, but they have to be a specific size and they have to weigh 16 ounces plus or minus a half an ounce.
Oh, if it doesn't have corn, I don't recognize it.
Well, you wouldn't get too much use out of your bags because the corn is not weatherproof. But
that's why you got to constantly have fresh corn for your hole.
Hey, with the prices of corn these days, that can get pretty expensive.
Well, so I'll say this: I went to the Cornhole Cave, and they've got these bags that have the beads are resin, and so they don't break down. But as I'm looking at this wall of bags, I was like, well, now I want to get a set for the house so we can play at the house because we had a good time doing it. And now they've got speed ratings. There's 2 sides to the bag. There's a fast side. There's a slower side. And then there's ratings for each of those sides. And then they've got tournament boards and regular boards and just backyard boards. And so when I walked in, I was like, you guys are serious. He goes, oh yeah, it was a serious business. And I was like, well, what does it take? And he's like, well, there's, all these leagues around town, and he goes, there's not a night of the week that, cornhole, bags aren't being tossed
yeah.
And I was like, really? And so, during the whole COVID thing, that's when I first saw cornhole on ESPN. as a professional sport.
Yeah.
I think it was the Ocho. And since I can't play dodgeball on the Ocho,
You're going to play.
I'm going to play cornhole on the Ocho.
Cornhole.
So anyway, that was 2019. Damon Dennis, the Sultan of Swish. And the video is
and he hit the airmail +1.
The airmail and one, kind of like in basketball, and one. And that's the name of the video. It's pretty sweet shot. Those are my three.
Well, I'm sure everybody out there in podcast land is like, oh yeah, I understand. That's me too.
I'm gonna almost
Damon Dennis, that moment.
Well, please post a link to the Sultan of Swish on your Facebook so I can see this event.
Well, see, but I kind of want to keep my intentions to go pro semi under wraps from other amputees because I don't want them beating me to it.
Well, you kind of talking about it on a podcast won't help.
But I'm really not worried about it. But I just beating them. But I want
just send him a link or post a link to the video and say, "Wow, this is awesome."
I might do that.
Okay, well, I'll go next. And go ahead.
In podcast land, I want to say potosphere or what was
Potosphere. Yeah, potosphere instead of podcast land. Potosphere.
You may go.
Thank you to all my friends in the potosphere. All right, top three. I was tuned into this one on the radio, an AM station, and it was September 18th, which is not far from now, 1999. And when this event happened, I literally jumped up and screamed, and I was at home at the time, and my mom thought something bad just happened. Like she went nuts because Louisiana Tech, where I went to school, was playing what turned out to be the SEC champion Alabama Crimson Tide that year. They were currently ranked 18th. We go play them in Tuscaloosa, and it was a pretty interesting game. We were down by 6. Had what I would consider the best quarterback of that era in Tim Rattay playing. He gets hurt in the fourth quarter with a minute. I think it was like a minute and 13 to play, and we send it our backup quarterback, which had not. Brian Stallworth. Yeah. Hadn't had any playing time. Literally, I think a few passes his entire collegiate career, and he goes in against Alabama, ends up 4th and 22 on the 27-yard line, 9 seconds on the clock, and Stallworth goes back for a pass and throws a touchdown to my friend, one of the only players on the team that I knew, Sean Cangelosi. And dude, so we tie him up. And what was even more interesting is Kevin Pond, our kicker, had missed 2 extra points this game. So he had to come in and kick an extra point to win. And sure enough, he nails it. There was still time on the clock, and we kick it short to Sean Alexander, if any of you football fans remember that. And that dude almost returns the kickoff for a touchdown, but we ended up tackling before he gets in.
Wasn't Joel or somebody there?
I think so. I'm not 100% sure.
Because that was the second time in 3 years we'd beaten Alabama.
That was the third meeting in a row where we had won.
Because I went to the 97 game with Landrum and John where we won 26-20.
Yeah. Yes, we owned Alabama in the 90s, basically. What good does that do us today? Not much. But anyway, that's my number 3. Number 2, Miracle on Ice, the 1980 men's Olympic hockey team beating Russia. I think that's just one of the greatest. Just the build up to that, how they built the team. They got the college kids. They didn't get the best players out there. The guy literally built the team to be the best team it could be, not just have the best players and hope it worked out. And it's just phenomenal. the way that and the size difference. If you just go back and watch some of that footage, those pros from Russia, how much height and weight they had on these college kids was phenomenal. A lot of people don't even remember this. It wasn't the gold medal match. This was to get to the gold medal match. But just fantastic. A lot of drama. I get chills every time I see the original video, which is pretty awesome. I've had opportunity to meet Jim Craig, the goalie for that team. He's a pretty cool guy. But anyway, and he had a lot of neat things to say about it as well. So I would say that's my number 2. My number 1, and I think this is just a little sentiment coming from, just after the 20th anniversary of 9/11. The first pitch that George Bush threw out, Game 3 of the 2001 World Series, I think it was in October. I don't know. It was just fantastic. Him walking out on the field, crowd going nuts, and then he stood up there and threw a strike
through the heat. Not just a strike, but through some heat.
Yeah. And a little backstory with that, they have a little place you can warm up under the stands, like outside of one of the locker rooms. And he was there warming up, and Derek Jeter stopped in, shook his hand, kind of talked to him a little bit, and then he said, "Hey, you gonna go out on the mound?" Because some of the ceremonial first pitches, they don't go that far.
They go in front of the mound.
Yeah, and he's like, "Well, of course, because Bush came from baseball." Didn't he? Who did he own? Was it the
Rangers?
Rangers, yeah.
And then Jeter, as he was walking out, he said, "Just so you know, this is New York, and they're still going to boo you if you don't throw a strike." Just kind of in jest. And Bush was like, "Oh, I know. That's why I'm down here warming up." So anyway, I think that's just fantastic, and that's a moment where I think it was a sport, but it was transcendent. It was bigger than a sporting event at that time. It was a pretty major thing. Just saying, during that September to October timeframe, we just didn't know how things were going to go, if we're going to get back to normal, those kind of things. And him going out there, everybody being behind it, everybody being together, no arguing at that time, and just throwing that first pitch and being confident in doing it, standing up in front of everybody. We got terrorists attacking us, and he's out there in a big baseball stadium just out there. I know he's wearing a bulletproof vest and all that kind of stuff, but I thought it was fantastic. That's my number 1.
It was an awesome moment.
All right, Broughton.
All right, I am taking liberties as a guest host, and I have some honorable mentions.
All right.
Oh, man.
And I have 2 categories of honorable mentions. First are the Troy Trussell honorable mentions.
Well, you're going to have to clarify.
I wouldn't be in this position if Troy hadn't gotten the COVID.
Yeah.
So, and I don't know what Troy's top 3 would have been, but I'm pretty darn sure that Troy's top 2, one of them would have been the Saints winning Super Bowl 44 for the 2009 season.
Uh-huh.
And another would have been...
Because Troy's a huge Saints fan.
And another one would have been September 25th, 2006, the first game back in the Superdome after Katrina.
Dude.
Playing the Falcons on Monday Night Football, and Steve Gleason, who's kind of a Saints hero. Now he's got a MS, I believe, or
ALS.
ALS, sorry. And he's pretty, not able to play ball or even, do
Yeah, he's in a chair. Yeah.
But in the first Falcons drive of the game, they have to punt, and he blocks the punt. It's returned for a touchdown. There's a statue of that outside the game, outside the stadium to this day. And that's one of the big moments in Saints history. And in honor of Troy, I just wanted to make those 2 Troy Trussell honorable mentions.
You got very, very much acceptable liberties that you've taken with your role as guest host.
And then I have some other. Oh, and by the way, I didn't do it all time. I kind of did it in my lifetime.
I got you.
So a little different parameters, but a couple other honorable mentions is kind of vague. The whole 1998 Major League Baseball home runs season, season with the home run chase between Sosa and McGuire, and also Kerry Wood striking out 20.
Dude, that Kerry Wood game was phenomenal. The tension that was building was something else. And then even heck, going back to what I was talking about, Sosa, running out on the field with the American flag in his first game back after the 9/11 attacks was a pretty big deal. But the 98 home run race saved baseball, right? I mean, the going up into that season, baseball didn't have a whole lot of fans.
Right. Yeah, they had not recovered well from the strike. And also, these aren't my top three, but LSU winning 3 national championships in order of best to worst, 2019, 2003, and 2007 in football in the last 18 years or whatever is a pretty big deal. And I added during this phone call, I added another honorable mention. The best thing I've seen in person was the 2003 LSU Georgia football game in Tiger Stadium. Yeah. That's when LSU really arrived. Game day was there for the first time in a while. Georgia was ranked higher. Everybody thought they were coming there to set their stamp for their national championship run, and they didn't. And won the national title that year. Okay, now my top 3.
All right, man. I think that's a record for honorable mentions. But go ahead.
I think there might have been some intention behind that.
Yeah.
Number 3 is Kirk Gibson's home run in Game 1 of the 1988 World Series. I've always been a Cub fan. The Cubs are my baseball team, but I was also kind of a Dodger fan back in the day. And the Dodgers played the A's that year. And the A's were heavily favored. Jose Canseco, Mark McGuire, Dennis Eckersley, all these, they were just dominant. And sure enough, in Game 1, the A's bring in Dennis Eckersley, and they're ahead by 1 in the 9th, or maybe ahead by 2, I can't remember. And Kirk Gibson is the MVP of the National League that year, but he's hurt. He's out for the World Series. But he's dressing anyway, and then Tommy Lasorda gets him up there, says, "Can you got one at bat in you?" And he's like, "All I can do is homer because I can't run." And so at the bottom of the 9th, he gets up there, and he homers. And the Dodgers take Game 1 at the bottom of the 9th, and you'll see it in a lot of famous highlights.
That's the fist pump while he's running around the bases, Fist
pump one, and Vince Scully
it's the chainsaw. It's the chainsaw pump.
Yeah.
And Vince Scully says, "I don't believe what I just saw."
Yeah.
Anyway, it was the first big moment I remember seeing, and it's one of the famous ones you see all the time. And I'm like, I remember where I was. I was spending the night at my friend's grandparents' house. We were watching the game. Okay.
Hey, I have a question. Hershiser was on that team, right?
He was. That was the year that he pitched 59 and 2/3 scoreless innings to end the year.
He ended up with the Cy Young that year, didn't he?
I'm pretty sure I saw that team play in Houston and Hershiser pitch at the Astrodome. I'll have to go back.
He dominated them.
Yeah. Anyway,
he was actually my favorite.
Series that year, I think it was. So they won.
Yeah, Hershiser. He was my favorite guy at that time.
Yeah, I have a signed rookie.
Like he signed, he like personally signed it, or is it one of those printed deals?
Nope. It's his. Yeah.
Give you 50 cents for it.
Pass. It's worth more than that.
He didn't say I have his fake signed rookie. He say I have his signed rookie. So
I still give him 50 cents for it.
Number 2 is the Cubs winning the World Series in 2016. As a Cub fan, all my life it's been sometimes do good, mostly do bad, but never, ever, ever win. And it was a 108-year World Series drought. And they put it all together. And it was I kind of faded. My interest in baseball had kind of faded, but they really kind of brought it back for a little bit. I finally got to know the players a little bit, and it was just awesome for them to win the World Series. And, the winning the extra innings for Game 7, and they had some really good players that they traded all of them away this year. So now they're just back to crap. But
well,
that was the big, my number 2.
Well, that the Royals just did that too. They win a World Series and then they trade off all the players that got them there.
Yeah, the Royals had won like the last. Did they win 2 or just 1?
1, I believe.
Yeah.
Because the Royals had the guy that was the World Series MVP for the Cubs was also for the Royals. What was that guy's name? He just sued his pastor.
What?
Oh yeah, I know who you're talking about.
I'm drawing a blank.
I am too. There's a B in the last name, I believe. I forget. Yeah, the pastor and his wife.
Ben Zobrist, yeah.
Yeah, Ben Zobrist. Yeah.
Yeah, man.
He's World Series MVP for the Royals, I think, and then also with the Cubs.
Yeah, no clue. I don't know.
Anyway, and number 1 is The Miracle on Ice.
Oh, sweet.
I was too young to know it was going on. I was like 4, or so. But looking back on it, that Al Michaels call, is not, 10 seconds on the clock. Do you believe in miracles? Yes. Is iconic. It's the most iconic sports call, I think. I know there's a lot of baseball calls, but I think that is the most iconic sports call in English anyway. I don't know what they're doing over there. Go! I think it's the most iconic English sports call, even though I love Harry Carey and all my covenants. Harry Carey is my favorite all-time broadcaster.
Yeah.
I really think Al Michaels is the best broadcaster of any sport ever. I mean, any sport, he does it great. But that hockey game and him ending it is great. What you said, Chet, it's just these American kids who grew up free, not going to take a bunch of commie crap. It's just like Rocky beating Drago. Rocky trained down, running up the mountains with chopping logs.
But in real life, yeah.
Those steroid pumping commie guys come over here with their gear and all that. And they didn't. They said, "No, I'm
we're gonna win.
I got to go back to college in the fall at the University of Minnesota. But right now, I'm going to fight for freedom." And they did.
Yes.
And it was. It began. It put everybody will notice the 1980s are a decade that America is putting this crap to an end. We're going to do it in the mountains with the Calumet High Wolverines. We're going to do it in the boxing ring with Rocky Balboa. We're doing it on the hockey rink right here, right now.
Yep.
And we're gonna do it in the hospital room with the birth of Matt Amos.
Yeah, there you go. They did that too. And it all started with the Miracle on Ice because everybody was just worried about 70s had ended on kind of a down note. What can get us all fired up again? And, a bunch of kids, northern kids, they didn't have anybody there from Louisiana or Georgia.
No.
But they came together and led the charge into the decade where America put down the Soviet Union.
And it just shocked everybody. I mean, that's the thing. There was the world stage back then was really there. Was wondering whether or not communism or freedom was better.
They lost that exhibition like 10-1.
Yeah.
And that part of the movie Miracle where they're walking by all the telegrams. There's no email. You couldn't tweet your support.
Yeah.
The people's writing letters and sending telegrams to Lake Placid to let those kids know we got your back, even though you just got rocked. Because we, in the long run, communism is a no-win game, and it wasn't. It's not. You can't. Communism's no good in the economic boardroom. It's no good on the hockey rink. And then even after that, the Finns had no chance.
Oh no, they were steamrolling after that.
Yeah, they had the steamrolled. Anyway,
Awesome.
That's my number 1.
Well, I completely agree with that being the number 1.
And now 37 more honorable mentions.
That's good. I'm glad there was a major sporting event that took place on June 22nd, 2001 that you didn't bring up, and I'm glad you didn't. We'll just leave it at that.
Yeah, that's I'm not gonna bring.
There's video of that as well. And Al Michaels was not there. All right, I'm gonna move us on over to the good word. Are you okay with that, Mr. Host?
Move it.
Okay. My word for today is courage, and I know we've kind of talked about this before, but I was inspired by a video I saw yesterday of some young people, high school students that walked out due to a mask mandate. They said we're tired of it, and we're not going to do it anymore. And the principal said, "Hey, I'm going to suspend you." And they're like, "Well, you said last week that you wouldn't, and now you're saying that you are. You're not a man of your word." And then he's like, "Well, as soon as I suspend you, these cops are going to escort you out." And then they're like, "Well, we'll leave right now if the cops tell us to leave." And the cops are like, "Well, we're not telling you to leave because you haven't done anything wrong yet. Until you get suspended, then we can tell you." And he's like, "Well, you're going to have to tell us to leave before we're going to leave." It's just kind of a standing up for and calling, BS on these school administrators that basically lied to the kids and backed on their word. And I found something that was pretty interesting from John Adams in his dissertation on canon and feudal law from 1756. So if you think, our founding fathers were very much prolific in writing and publishing things leading up to the Revolution to get people on board and understanding what their mentality was and what they had found, was individual freedom and individual rights. And he had a statement on our kids. And he said this in that dissertation: "It should be your care, therefore, and mine to elevate the minds of our children and exalt their courage, to accelerate and animate their industry and activity, to excite them in a habitual contempt of meanness, abhorrence of injustice and inhumanity, and an ambition to excel in every capacity, faculty, and virtue. We suffer their minds to grovel and creep in infancy. They will grovel all their lives." So he was stating that we should fire our kids up to stand up against injustice, against inhumanity, and that we should be giving them an ambition to excel in every capacity and faculty. And if you look at what's going on today in the schools, it's teaching them to grovel. We don't want your opinion. We don't want to hear what you say. We don't care about your mental health. We don't care about anything other than you not catching this virus. We don't really care about your education right now, because if you come in with 3 feet with somebody for 15 seconds, we're going to send you home for the next 2 weeks, and we don't have a plan to give you homework and to get you caught up. That's kind of where we are right now, and the kids are fed up with it. And I know there are a lot of parents that are fed up with it, but I think the kids that have the courage to say something about it is fantastic. And I fully support them, and it'd be awesome to see a whole lot more of it. Because if all we do is teach them to grovel and be an infant just waiting to be told what to do, they're going to do that all their lives, according to John Adams.
Absolutely. Back in the day, we watched G.I. Joe, and we were taught to be awesome. Nowadays, kids are taught to be careful about using the wrong pronoun.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. Good word.
Yeah. So anyway, that's from my buddy John Adams back in 1756.
He was a good dude. That HBO miniseries on John Adams is pretty good. I don't know if you ever saw it.
I haven't seen that. I don't have HBO.
I mean, it came out in like the 2007 or something.
I didn't have HBO back then either.
It was
But based on your recommendation, I'll have to go look at that.
the guy that played him is the guy. What is that guy's name?
Was it Russell Crowe?
No, I think it
What? Where'd you get that?
Paul Giamatti.
Oh, okay. I know who you're talking about. Did you just type something? You Googled something?
Yeah, I've been here. I'm at the desk.
So
I have more resources than you.
what if we just have you call in on every episode we record, and you could be our researcher?
I mean, do that some.
Hey, just so you know, today's my birthday.
Is it?
Did you guys know that?
It is not.
It is the day that this comes out. It's my birthday.
Okay.
Which made me think about it when you said you were 4 years old when they won the against the Russians in the Miracle on Ice. I'm like, oh yeah, I was 4 years old. Oh wait, yeah, it's my birthday, 16th.
I wasn't even born yet.
Yeah, I know. Which your lack of experience shows.
You're not. We don't need to reveal too much about our personal information on here, but you're a year older than me. You're not a week older than me, right?
No, a week.
Okay.
Yep. All right, Chris Broughton, Beef Broughton. Thank you, sir, for joining us.
Hey, anything for you guys in Troy Trussell?
Well, and hopefully Troy will be back next week. We don't know. He's doing okay. He's not like in the hospital or anything like that. He's been getting medical advice from me and Matt, so he clearly doesn't care about his life if he's followed any of that. But
I mean, if he wants to stay out of the hospital, just follow mine because I managed to do that.
Yeah. You had like a weaker virus.
I spoke to a family member last night who takes ivermectin once a week.
Prescribed or horse?
I don't know.
Okay.
But
I know of some medical professionals that do the prescription drug ivermectin.
He's probably got, knowing him, it's probably horse.
Okay.
But it's,
maybe it's been proven.
Yep. There's no talk about therapeutics though. We're only going to talk about prophylactics, the whole prevention through vaccines. We're not going to talk about how to treat people once they get it. Anyway, all right, we don't need to go back there. Matt, you got anything?
I'm good.
Chris, you got anything?
No, just whatever the reverse is of kick it.
End it. Let's just end it.
Just end it.
End it.
All right. I have to take us out because you don't do that, even though you're hosting.
Take out. That's right.
Thank you for tuning in to Hardheaded Podcast. We'd like to thank our sponsor, Admiral's Pennant Beard Oil. Without it, you might as well shave. I'd like to thank our special co-host fill-in, Beef Broughton, dialing in from Southern HQ in Louisiana. And as always, like, share, subscribe. Really appreciate you. Thanks for tuning in. We'll talk to you next week. Hey, you got the drop.
And then you ruin it.
Talk over it. We didn't need to wait for that. All right, man.
Is it over?
It's over.
We're done.